big GCW fan. And since the pandemic, I've been on probably 6 or 7 GCW shows. Same thing with ICW No Holds Barred. I was a huge fan of theirs since, ICW No Holds Barred won. And now they're on, I think they're getting ready to go to 14 or maybe 15. And I'm booked for all of ICW's upcoming shows. So, you know what I mean? Like, it's just, it's crazy that like I feel like once I started growing the man bun back, it was like I got my strength back. Like it was Samson, like, except not necessarily strength. It was like I was starting to have fun again. And then it was like things were happening for me that I couldn't believe were happening. And so I don't know. The man bun is kind of sentimental now at this point, but it started off just because, I have nice hair. So I was like, let me see what happens with it. And my ex-wife at the time liked to run her fingers through it. You know what I mean? So that was why I grew my hair out at first. But it's kind of became, something entirely different.
No, I get you. And one of those things, the times are changing. Not everyone really cares that if you have long hair nowadays anymore. It's changed that whole perspective. And honestly, I thought it was one of the worst perspectives that we as a society had, is that there's a negative connotation for guys having long hair. I never understood it. Myself, my ex-wife hated long hair. Anytime it started getting long, she would complain, and then I'd cut it. Met her and I split up several years ago. A couple years after we split up, I ended up started dating somebody else, and they're like, "No, I actually kind of like long hair. Why don't you try it?" Okay. And that's where it came to be. So I completely understand the perspective.
Right. Exactly.
And now, I'll tell you, I used to work in an office, and I worked with people that were much older than me, and a lot of them were going bald. And I got that hate tossed my way. Oh, we don't have thick hair like him. I'm sorry. I'm gonna go gray if that makes you feel any better at all. I'm gonna be completely gray in the next few years. So
well, I've got a couple of I don't know if they're white or blonde hairs, but they're poking through my beard. So
yeah,
I know
that's where it started with me. Yeah, mine started with white. What was so you're consider going to wrestling? So what was your inspiration to get into wrestling? What was your wrestler of choice at that point?
You said, wait, hold on. Ask that question again. Sorry, my bad.
So no, you're good. Before becoming a referee, you had mentioned you were considering going into wrestling, become a wrestler, things like that. So who was your inspiration? Who were the wrestlers you looked up to?
Oh, definitely a big Shawn Michaels guy.
Okay.
Actually, so much so that I was one of the monikers that I would go by when I was doing music was because I have a lot of pride in my name, and so I used to use my, I guess shoot name as my stage name whenever I would do music. So I used to call myself the Heartbreak Kid, Sean Patrick. So
okay.
And then so Shawn Michaels has always been, one of my favorite wrestlers. Definitely a big John Cena guy, especially the early John Cena stuff.
Okay.
With being a hip hop fan.
Dr. Thugonomics.
Absolutely, yeah. Yep. Loved all that stuff. Let's see. Love Taker. I was a big Taker fan, so much so that when me and my little brother would, wrestle in the living room and stuff, I would make a own character and I would call myself the Demon, and I literally would do everything that. Actually, that's kind of I've never even told that story before, but yeah, we used to wrestle around, and I would call myself. It would either be the Demon or the Monster or whatever, and I would do the eye roll and all that stuff. Oh, you know who one of my favorite wrestlers that nobody talks about is, people bring him up from time to time, but one of my favorite wrestlers growing up was the Road Dogg, Jesse James.
I like the way he used to trash talk on the way to the ring.
Oh, me too. Loved it, dude. I loved it. And then he would be so entertaining. He would do the the rolling punches and all that stuff. Like, just an entertainer through and through, and like loved it. I loved watching Road Dogg. But what was funny was I actually became a fan of Road Dogg on accident, because you know how in elementary school, we all, at least in my elementary school, and the friends that I was hanging out with, we were all wrestling fans. And this was in the heyday of, NWO and DX and all that stuff. And so I remember there was a recess or whatever it was that we were, playing wrestler, and people were like, oh, I'm going to be this guy and I'm going to be this guy. And I think I tried to be Shawn Michaels, but somebody else wanted to be him. And so somebody had said, you should be Road Dogg. And I was like, oh, okay, I guess,
Right.
And so that was kind of how I became like a fan of Road Dogg Jesse James, to the point of where I just, for whatever reason, would just pay attention to him. But then like as an adult, it's just like, man, like he actually was really, really good. And I mean, now he's still working for WWE as an agent. So obviously, but yeah, that was another one of my favorites.
His tag team with Billy Gunn was one of those that played to their strengths, because Billy Gunn, big guy, really good for getting an offense. Jesse James is the mouth and the one that could take the beating. Right. So exactly. They just balanced each other perfectly.
Yep.
The only thing I did not like about the Road Dogg is his finisher was a pump handle slam, and always for a setup. I don't know why. Well, I do know why, because that's his character. But he would always do the thing where he like hump behind them before doing it. And I'm like, can you not? But you mentioned a lot of WWF guys. So you mentioned the Little Nation, WCW. Any WCW guys you're a fan of?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well, what's funny is I actually, one of the first things that like really grasped me one of the first, I guess, really memories that I have of pro wrestling was watching WCW when the NWO had invaded and, threw Rey Mysterio up against the trailer, and we know now because of podcasts and certain things that the ambulance and fire trucks were shoot called. You know what I mean?
Right. That's insane.
Called. Like, that's so insane. but we're watching at home, and it's just like, oh, well, me being I believed it. I believed for a long time. I feel like I can't tell you when exactly I stopped believing. I know it was definitely middle school age, somewhere around there. But like, I know I believed longer than a lot of my friends did. So seeing, fire trucks and ambulances pull up, and, and they're speeding out of there, and Macho Man is, all that, like, it was crazy, man. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was wild to watch. And I was like, dude, this is really happening right now in real time. Like, what in the hell? And then, as I watched more and more throughout the years, all the antics that DX would do, it's as far as like, even crazy stuff, like the Kiss My Ass Club and like just all this like that. It's just like, man, like this is some wild stuff. Like, or even like just believing the fact that Vince McMahon actually is a jerk, which, now thanks to like Dark Side of the Ring and different stuff like that,
Yeah, it depends on who you ask at that point.
Right. But yeah, so but yeah, as far as WCW going back, huge NWO fan. I love the NWO. And I always was Chris Jericho always stuck out to me, like even from like an early age, way before he was, Y2J and all that stuff. Like Chris Jericho, for some reason, always stuck out to me. I love Sting. Sting was amazing, still is.
Yeah.
And let's see, love Conan. Still a big Conan fan to this day. But mostly like anybody who is, especially like NWO and NWO Red and Black. I was a big NWO Red and Black fan because everybody in there was just people that I was big fans of. From as I was saying, Conan. I was a big fan of Kevin Nash's stuff at that time. even Red and Black Sting was the man. So
Mm-hmm.
like all that.
Yeah, so I was a big NWO fan, and actually, so I go by my initials on here, which is my first and middle initial. My first name's Kevin. Kevin was not a good name to have in the '90s because, thank you, Home Alone. Um, and it wasn't until I found, WCW and Kevin Nash that it's like, oh, okay, now he's kind of a cool character, and people are starting to stop giving me so much crap about Home Alone now. And at the time, you and I were talking about elementary school, going fifth into sixth grade. I was taller than a lot of people in my own age, so people always referred to me as Big Kev, relating it to Kevin Nash. So that's where I got kind of lucky in that sense.
Nice, right?
Yeah, so I could definitely see it. And like you mentioned, Shawn Michaels, when me and my brothers used to also wrestle in the living room, I would go by Kevin Michaels because first name, middle name. But and then it's like, oh wait, Shawn Michaels is actually a person. I can't do that. So,
Right.
and relative to Jericho, one of the first pay-per-views I ever watched was Halloween Havoc, I think '98, right around that era. And the first match of the night was Chris Jericho versus Raven. And me and my partner recently did a retro review, and there was a promo that Jericho cut that was just like at the very end he goes, because Jericho equals buy rates, Jericho equals uh, rear ends in the seats, and Jericho equals rock and roll. And it's like he cut that promo in 1998 and it's still relevant.
Exactly. Yep. Big facts. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, he's still a draw. Who would you consider the like Mount Rushmore of wrestling that you would choose?
Oh man, that's tough. I would have to go with Steve Austin. Will be on there for sure.
I can definitely see that.
I would have to put as much as I my personal feelings. You have to put Hulk Hogan on there.
Yeah, I can. You and I will agree on that one.
Regardless of personal feelings.
Yeah,
Come on in there.
I'm not a big fan of Hogan, but I recognize the fact that he is part of the reason that wrestling got as big as it did in the 90s and in the 80s.
Yep.
And he did ultimately what was best for business by becoming Hollywood Hogan, and he was very much believable as a bad guy.
Yeah. Yep. Exactly. All that. Yep. It's unfortunate, but hey.
I disagree with Hulk Hogan on a lot of personal things, but yeah, yeah.
Oh, me too. Yeah, me too. And I ultimately, like, if you look back at his entire career, especially out of the ring, it, like, and it sucks to say this about anybody, but I feel like he is so toxic to the wrestling business. You know what I mean?
From his personal matter, yeah, absolutely.
If you look at history, his politicking, all that, which, I mean, politicking happens in literally every locker room, but like he literally would hold guys back. You know what I mean? Like
a good example of that was the whole thing with Bret Hart and Yokozuna, where Yokozuna beat Bret Hart and then he drops a leg on Yokozuna and takes the belt.
Yeah. I remember that. Yeah, I know that story now. It's familiar.
Yeah.
But okay, so we got
Austin and Hogan.
Hulk Hogan, Austin. I would say I want to put a woman on there, so I'm gonna put China.
Very respectable.
And last, I'll go with we'll go with Cena.
Cena.
Yeah.
So I want to ask you about Austin. With Austin, did you watch the A&E special that they did on him, the biography?
Not yet. I'm getting ready to. I was literally trying to find it like
Mm-hmm.
through a couple of my bootleg sites that I have, and I was able to
Okay.
find it. So I
Definitely.
was